Any minute now, we're going to see Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. She is going to speak live from Mexico about the drug wars going on there. She has just wrapped up a meeting with President Felipe Calderón. You are watching MSNBC. Will the U.S. be sending troops to the border to stop the bloodshed on the border? Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is in Mexico, and she will be speaking any minute, and we will bring that to you live. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is meeting, or has met, with Mexican President Felipe Calderón on a plane, actually, to Mexico. Said the United States bears much of the blame for the current violence. This is in part what she said. How could anyone conclude differently? Our insatiable demand for illegal drugs fuels the drug trade. Our inability to prevent weapons from being illegally smuggled across the border to arm these criminals causes the deaths of police officers, soldiers, and civilians. Well, T.J. Bonner is the president of the National Border Patrol. T.J., we're waiting on the Secretary of State to make some more comments as she is visiting Mexico. But what do you think of her comments? A lot of people surprised to hear that from her, that frankness from her.
Well, I think that she makes a valid point. The U.S. is the primary user of illegal drugs in the world, but we have been for a number of years.
It is day 2 of Secretary Clinton's visit here, her diplomatic approach, her outreach to Mexico. The Secretary is pushing for the U.S. and Mexico to work together to fight the escalating drug war. In an interview with us last night, she went further than any previous U.S. official has in saying that the United States shares some of the blame for the drug violence because of America's insatiable demand for illegal drugs.
It is drug demand in the United States which drives the drugs north across our border, and we have assault weapons and other guns coming south illegally to arm the drug gangs against the Mexican army and police. That's why we say it is a shared responsibility.
Secretary of State Clinton says that the U.S. shares responsibility for the drug war violence. 60% of drugs in the U.S. come from Mexico, and 90% of the cartel's guns come from the United States. I sat down with the Secretary last night and asked her about the cross-border crackdown that she now envisions.
Madam Secretary, thank you so much for doing this interview. You talked today about shared responsibility. What should Americans realize about American responsibility for this drug war that's been escalating on our borders?
Well, Andrea, I think that's a really important question because we do have responsibility for what's happening in Mexico. It is drug demand in the United States which drives the drugs north across our border. If there were not such a high level of demand, it wouldn't be so profitable, and you wouldn't have these drug gangs fighting for territory because they make so much money selling drugs to Americans. And we have assault weapons and other guns coming south illegally to arm the drug gangs against the Mexican army and police. That's why we say it is a shared responsibility, and we're going to do everything we can to help President Calderón and the Mexican government and the Mexican people defeat the violence and criminality of these drug cartels.
One of the things that the Mexicans are concerned about are the assault weapons, and that ban was permitted to expire in previous years. You spent your life as a First Lady and as a Senator fighting against the drugs, fighting for that ban. Why not take that on? Politically tough, but why doesn't the administration challenge the gun lobby and take on the assault weapon ban and reinstitute it?
Well, as Secretary Napolitano said yesterday, we're going to use every tool at our disposal, many of which were put on a back shelf during the prior administration. We're going to start tracing these guns. We're going to start cracking down on illegal gun sales. We're going to go after the straw men and women who go in and buy these guns. We're going to do much more on trying to prevent them from getting into Mexico in the first place. And we're going to talk to the Congress. I'm not going to, sugarcoat it. It's a very heavy lift. I think that's a mistake. I think these assault weapons, these military-style weapons, don't belong on anyone's street. During the time period from 1994 to 2004, when the ban was in effect, our police in America were able to drive crime down because they didn't have to worry about these assault weapons getting into the hands of criminals and gang members. So we will make the case that we need to put more teeth into the law, try to prohibit the sale outside of our borders of these guns, but we're going to do everything we possibly can.
What can we do on the demand side? Is there some effort, some new initiative that the Obama administration can come up with to try to do something to curb the American appetite? You called it an insatiable appetite for drugs.
Well, as you know, you've been covering this for a long time, and we've been living it for a long time. It kind of ebbs and flows, but unfortunately we've not been successful in really driving demand down. I think that President Obama is very focused on more treatment, diversionary programs, the kinds of things that could help us with the demand. And we're going to have to be smarter about how we prevent the drugs from getting into the country in the first place and break up the distribution networks. You know, you remember a few weeks ago there was a huge national arrest process that picked up hundreds of people who are connected to these drug gangs here in Mexico who are at the distribution points. I know how committed the Obama administration is, and we're going to give it our very best efforts.
One criticism from some Mexicans today is 360 Border Patrol agents, not enough.
Well, we're closer to about 450 of the combination of new resources on the border. But don't forget, we're also coming forward with a lot of technology. You know, this is not all just a labor-intensive effort. We have to be smart about the surveillance we use and the efforts to try at the border to be smarter about figuring out what's in these cars and trucks, and we're going to start stopping rail cars as they go south. We're really coming out with a full array of new strategies, and you know, Secretary Napolitano and Attorney General Holder will be here in a matter of days to discuss in more detail with their Mexican counterparts. I'll be back with President Obama in a few weeks, and we're going to make this one of our highest priorities.
And here in Mexico, do you have concerns that the Mexican authorities are not up to the task, as enormous as it is, because of corruption, because of all the things they've inherited, to try to combat these cartels?
No, actually, we're very impressed with what President Calderon and the Mexican government, particularly the military, has been able to do. They know that they've got to keep doing more and increasing their capacity. They're focusing on judicial reform. They're looking at how to increase the effectiveness of the police at all levels. So we are impressed, but clearly they need help. They are facing ruthless, well-armed, absolutely violent, to an extreme, conscienceless foes, and we're going to be there to help them all the way.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary.
Thank you.